We'll go ahead and talk about it because it is very important to the future of this uh, conference, and that is the three permanent opponents on Tennessee's schedule for the next 4 seasons. So, not really permanent, but they'll reevaluate it and could potentially keep those opponents on there if they feel like it. And if you've been watching us for the last few months, then you know exactly who those permanent opponents are: Alabama, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. There was never a good argument to have anybody else on the schedule for Tennessee permanently than those three teams, because Tennessee has been playing all three of those teams pretty much annually for the last century plus.
Yeah.
Because Kentucky and Vanderbilt have been playing Tennessee since the 1890s, pretty much, when football first began being popularized in this country. So, and to me, there was no debate as to who it would be. I know some people, especially Tennessee fans that are closer to our age, were hoping you'd get Georgia or Florida on there. Um, but I've mentioned it in previous shows that those two meant nothing, or not nothing, but they meant way less to Tennessee before the year 1992 than they do right now.
Yeah. I mean, that is true. I'm still a little disappointed that Tennessee doesn't play Florida every single year, but I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense what Tennessee did. They chose the most historical rivalries. I mean, especially Alabama and Vanderbilt. Tennessee's been playing them for a long, long time. And I'm sure a lot of Tennessee fans got to be happy that they finally don't have to play against Georgia, Alabama, and Florida every single year, because that has been an issue ever since Josh Heupel's gotten there. I mean, it's been a problem off and on throughout the history of Tennessee's football, but I mean, more so than late. I mean, that's what's kept Tennessee from going to the playoffs some year. I mean, like in 2022, I mean, I know everything happened with South Carolina the way that it did, but I mean, Tennessee beats Georgia. I mean, they still got a chance to go to the playoffs. I mean, especially as a one-loss SEC team. So that's a little refreshing. But it is a little. I'm just a little disappointed about Florida, but because I'm just wanting Tennessee to turn that career record around and finally get back on top of Florida. But you're right. I mean, it's became more of a rivalry like since the Spurrier era. I mean, I feel like he played a big factor into why Tennessee fans hate Florida as much as they do. But I think that they ultimately got it right with the rivals, as much as I'd like Florida to be on there.
Yeah. And I think the rivalries that ended up getting left out, for example, Alabama and LSU, and then Texas A&M and Arkansas, um, those are kind of secondary rivals, I think, to some of those teams. I don't, maybe not Arkansas. Well, actually, yes, it is to Arkansas. Certainly to Texas, I know, or Texas A&M, I know it is. And then LSU's got a few different teams you could call rivals. It's just weird because, like, there's some teams like for example, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia. Those teams required no thought as to who their permanent three should be, and that's exactly what the SEC did. They gave Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, and Auburn, and then they gave Texas, Texas A&M, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. No thought required in doing any of that, just because those teams traditionally do not like each other, and they are within a geographic proximity of each other. But in some cases, they are a little bit tougher to determine. Like, you have some oddballs out there, like South Carolina, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Missouri obviously is one of them, who they have one rival, but they can't really claim any others. So you kind of have to do it based a little bit more on geography than anything, and I think that's what we saw a little bit. Um, so I mean, for the most part, you have matchups that make sense across the board. I think even for Mizzou, like, those matchups all make sense. You know, the Arkansas, I know the border war is a very manufactured thing, or the battle line trophy is very manufactured, but I guess because they broke the bank to make that sick trophy, they had to they had to keep that rivalry intact, and that's the closest or one of the closest SEC schools to Mizzou. Oklahoma is another one that makes a lot of sense for Mizzou. And then they put them with Texas A&M as well, which is kind of funky, but they did also enter the league at the same time. And they, aside from some of those old Southwest Conference and Big 12 schools, they just didn't really fit with anybody else, I didn't feel like. So, honestly, not a bad idea to put Mizzou there. And then teams like South Carolina and Kentucky, they got grouped with like traditional SEC East teams. Like South Carolina got grouped with Georgia because that's the closest SEC team to them. Florida, which does make some sense actually, and then Kentucky, which sounds kind of funny, but you got to keep in mind if you were going to do the hypothetical 8-team league where you or 8-team schedule where you keep the one permanent opponent on there. You would preserve in-state rivalries. So the teams in Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas would all play each other. Georgia and Florida would automatically get grouped together. You would assume Arkansas and LSU would get grouped because LSU and Oklahoma doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you would put Mizzou and Oklahoma together for the sake of tradition. So that leaves 2 teams out of the mix mathematically, which are South Carolina and Kentucky. So honestly, not bad. Little surprised they did not give Vanderbilt Kentucky. They gave Vanderbilt Mississippi State, Auburn, and Tennessee, which is honestly not a terrible draw right now. I guess it does make some sense from a geographical standpoint. I thought, if anything, Vanderbilt was going to get either Ole Miss or Missouri. Ole Miss and Oklahoma is the real oddball here. I don't know why or how they came to that conclusion. I know there's some math involved there. But that's just what they decided to do. Ole Miss has really only got Mississippi State and LSU as the big rivals. The Arkansas one, I guess, is what it is. There aren't any other huge ones besides that, though. So, other than the Ole Miss Oklahoma game, I think most of these make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the SEC got it right for the most part. I really like what they did with like more of the Western schools. Like, I mean, Texas got Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, which I think makes perfect sense. And then I like too, like as you mentioned, that Missouri and Texas A&M are together on there, because I mean they were like the little oddballs that got grouped in, to the SEC during that first merger.
Yeah, and I saw some people advocating to put South Carolina and Arkansas together because they joined the league at the same time. But the reality is, Arkansas has so many more teams it can call a rival in the SEC than South Carolina can. South Carolina is one of those teams that would like to claim Tennessee as a rival, whereas Tennessee has like 5 teams it considers more of a rival than South Carolina traditionally speaking, because like Georgia and Florida, it did not become relevant until 1992. And even then, it wasn't really relevant until the mid 2000s because South Carolina could never beat Tennessee.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some Georgia fans that are disappointed that Tennessee isn't on the yearly schedule, but I've always been one of those Tennessee fans that I've never looked at Georgia as a rival. Like I know somewhere you see it listed on there, but I've never really considered Georgia as a traditional rival for Tennessee. I think Georgia fans think more about that than Tennessee fans do.
Yeah. Yeah. So overall, I think the league got it right. We are now just waiting and seeing what will happen tomorrow night at 6 Central, 7 Eastern, I guess, is the full schedule reveal. And I think that's opponents for potentially the next 4 years, maybe not just next year. So it'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to watch everybody's opponents get revealed. Hoping for some fun games on there. I believe it's going to be 5 SEC home games for Tennessee next season. 2 of which will be Alabama and Kentucky. I guess the other 3 are yet or they just remain to be seen because you got the 4 SEC road games plus Georgia Tech and Atlanta. And then to counter that, the next season they're going to do 4 SEC home games, 5 road games because you have Georgia Tech at home. And then the year after that, it'll just work the same way because you'll get the 5 SEC home games because you get the Washington home and home, so you'll have to go up there in 28. So that all makes sense, I think, and ultimately good too because now you'll have of your 7 home games, you've got 5 that you can really consider marquee at this point if you're Tennessee. So that's good, and also makes you glad that Tennessee is not one of those programs that loves playing neutral site games annually. Nobody really likes them, but there's those games out there like the cocktail party and the shootout that are always going to be played at a neutral site just forever and ever. And I don't think that's great for recruiting, but it should help that you get these 5 marquee matchups in just for recruiting purposes.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to see whenever the schedule gets released. I'm really excited for whenever Tennessee has to play against Texas. That's something I've been looking forward to.
Yeah.
Well before even Texas joined the SEC, I've wanted to see Tennessee play against Texas in like a bowl game or just anything. So I mean, surely they'll be Tennessee's opponent within the next 4 years, considering I mean, they haven't been in the SEC, but like this, their second season. So I mean, they'll eventually get in there on the schedule, and then we'll get to see who's really the real UT, which everyone listening to the show already knows who that is. But I mean, Texas fans need to know about that as well, and that's going to be a really exciting. It's probably going to be a really expensive game too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, Jordan, that's something I've been thinking about for a long time too, and just the uniform clash. Like, how are we going to be able to tell each other apart? How are Tennessee and Texas going to be able to tell each other apart? Unless Tennessee wears the smoky grays or dark mode, in which case it'll be fine. Unless it's a Halloween game, in which case you'd want it. Which, by the way, I think that would be next year. That would be the Halloween game because you got a game on November 1st this season. I'm not entirely. Hold up. Let me pull up the calendar. I want to do that just to make sure. Because I want to see because if Tennessee does indeed get a home game next season on Halloween, that would be awesome. And it is indeed a home game not a home game. It's Halloween on a Saturday. So somebody is going to get a home game for that one. I hope it's not a bye week. I really, really hope it's not a bye week. Because that would just be a super awesome. Because Tennessee's not had a Halloween home game since 2009. Because the last time they played on Halloween was, I believe, in 2015 at Kentucky when they blew out Kentucky up there under Butch Jones.
Yeah, and that last home game was like very fun. I remember that was the one where Tennessee came out in the orange on orange, and then they came back out the black uniforms on, and that was a Steve Spurrier led South Carolina team too. So it was nice getting a win over the old ball coach. But man, that would be so exciting. Tennessee getting a home game on Halloween, especially if it's Texas, man. That would be that would be electric.
Yeah, I hope we speak this into existence, but that may not be the case, unfortunately.